So, hello and welcome to today's session on Future of Mobility. My name is Mariana and I'm Program Manager for the Austral Group. And our guest speaker today is Cristóbal Munoz, Country Manager from Mobike. And we are going to talk about future of mobility.
Thank you, Mariana, for the presentation. Hello, everyone. As Mariana mentioned, we are going to talk today about the future of mobility and specifically about Mobike. And I would like to start with this quote that was actually bring bicycles back to cities. Was the vision that Hu Weiwei, that was the founder of Mobike, had in mind at the time that she decided to pursue this dream of solving connectivity problems in cities using bicycles. So Mobike, to give you a brief history of how it started and when it started, it was founded in 2015. Started the operations on April 2016 in Shanghai. It was a Chinese company that conquered the world. Actually, it's the largest bike sharing company in the world, dockless. So you don't have a fixed stations around the city. It's a free flow scheme where you can take the bike and leave it whatever you want within the boundaries of the operational zone. And with 7 million bikes operating in 200 cities in 20 countries, there's 230 million registered users who make up to 30 million rides per day. And that's, imagine the amount of data that is generated on each trip of a user. I mean, if you gather all the users, it's around 40 teras of data per day. It was the fastest company to grow from 0 to 20 million day transaction in just 300 days. And it was acquired by Meituan Dianping. Meituan Dianping is one of the biggest tech companies in the world. It's Chinese as well. And in April 2018 for 2.7 billions. And then Meituan IPO'd in Hong Kong. It was a public company with the IPO and a valuation of 53 billions. That was the market cap at that time. What was it's not that the paradigm, but the question is access over ownership. It is a shift that has taken root in the digital world, where you have digital mobile technologies that make it even easier to access goods and services on demand. Actually, we're now using Zoom, and probably you are buying your groceries through delivery platforms or apps. Is something that actually at the beginning was a millennial preference, that they didn't want to own stuff, but they preferred to share it. But nowadays, I think it's taking part of everyone in the modern society. It wasn't odd. I can imagine a lot of people that never use Netflix or use Uber Eats, Corner Shop, or even bike sharing platforms were forced to do that. So I think the speed in how the technology took place during this crisis has been massive. And a change in the paradigm is this one. Actually, you can pay for the experience or the service. It's not necessary that you have to own things. If you share, I mean, infrastructure, time, or underutilized capacity is used. Actually, you have one asset, but it could be shared with a limited number of people, independent in its capacity, but it could be more than one. It's no longer one-to-one, it's one-to-n. And through online platforms, transaction costs and times make this ecosystem viable. Some of the examples, actually, in 2013, the sharing economy sector versus the traditional one, 50% was weighted the sharing economy sector. You have examples as of on-demand staffing like TaskRabbit, video streaming like Netflix, shared mobility with bikes, Mobike as well, hospitality, but in a sense where you share your place to others, that is Airbnb. And within the fintech industry is a lending club as well. It's like the peer-to-peer crowd-based financing. However, in 2025, the 5% will become 50%. And from 15 billions within the sharing economy sector in 2013, we will get to 335 billions. This report was done by the PwC, but I think it was before COVID. I think the numbers will change massively nowadays. If they do this again, probably we will get to a 75% that will be shared. And this is because we were forced to change behaviors and change the way we used to live. What about Mobike? Well, as I mentioned before, Mobike is the world's first intelligent dockless bike sharing platform. And the purpose of Mobike is solving the last mile connectivity problems in cities. Mobike combines a unique patented bike design and IoT smart lock system. Of course, this is possible through a smartphone app where you can access to bikes when and where you need it the most. That's the advantages of Mobike. Mobike is already helping cities. I mean, this is not that we provide a service or we provide the bikes for people to commute or to solve the last mile problem. Actually, we're also helping around the world in the cities we are in, reducing traffic congestion and the CO2 emissions. Therefore, better connecting people with their own communities. So this is like an example of a journey where you are at home. This was before COVID and before remote work. This is where you are at home. You need to commute to a transport hub. That it could be a train, it could be a bus, it could be a metro station. And then, of course, when you want to go to the office, you have the last leg of the trip. You will take a micro mobility solution like Mobike to go to the office, and then vice versa when you want to go back to home. Most of the trip, like in that mile, is not actually exactly a mile, but it's trips that goes between 2 to 4 kilometers. That's the range where micromobility services play, actually. How this works? Actually, with Mobike, you can easily move around the city without the need to get stuck in traffic or park your bike in a distant station, or even to have a bike. That's where we come back to the ownership versus access. So it's easy and fun. Actually, you look for I have another slide that will explain it better, right? Actually, you find the bike anywhere at any time you need it. You unlock it and you even do the payment through the app as well. So this is how it will look like. So you search for the bike in nearby where you are. Actually, once you find the bike, you scan the QR code and unlock the bike. Then you ride wherever you need to go. And at the end of the trip, that's always we remember our users that you need to park responsibly and close the lock. Once you close the lock, the finish is the ride is finished and is the end of the trip. So this is like in app. This is how the map looks like. All the dots, red and the orange ones and the white ones are two different types of bikes that we have. And once you find the bike, you go to the bike, you scan it in the lock where you have a QR code. That's where all the IoT, cloud communication, vehicle to app plays its role. Then after you do the trip, you can have performance stat. You will know the kilometers, the calories, the CO2 emissions that you save and the benefit that you give to the world. And at the end, of course, you have an easy payment, is a IoT as well, and it's connected with the PSPs and through the same app, you can pay with your credit card. And you can either top up or you can buy a subscription that is going to be described here, actually. So in terms of like the business model, everyone is asking actually when we talk with people in the streets and through social media, receive a lot of questions about how Mobike works. Actually, you can either do a subscription that is going to be, you will become a pass holder where you will have 120 minutes unlimited trips. So you can buy for 30 days, 90, 180, or 360. But actually, if you are not going to be a heavy user and you're not going to be riding every day, you could do the pay as you go. But actually, you can have like 20-minute trips. You have to top up your app. There's a different amounts in the different cities that we operate. You top up, and every time that you ride, 399 CLPs, that is like 40 cents US dollars here in Chile, will be deducted from the top up or the balance that you have in your wallet. I remember that when we discussed this with Antonia and Mariana, the questions was, okay, what are actually the benefits of Mobike as a bike sharing system? And we want to, actually, we like to call it like we have a triple impact. One is the environment. Actually, as I mentioned before, we're helping cities around the world by improving the quality of life. And we're reducing traffic and congestion, and therefore the CO2 emissions. And as an example, if a person who used to go to work or to go to study at university in rides that goes between 2 to 4 kilometers, if they switch to bikes, he or she will save 0.43 tons of CO2, and that's the equivalent of 7% of your personal carbon footprint in a year. Of course, if you look at these stats individually, it looks like, okay, it's 10%. But if you gather all the users that we have now and they're all doing the same, actually the effect or the impact that we have in the environment is massive. In addition to this, we have another pillar is social and well-being. Actually, by cycling has a positive effect on emotional health. Actually improves the level of well-being, self-confidence, and tolerance to stress. This exactly plays a role when we talk with the corporates and we offer our Cycle to Work program, that the purpose is to offer the people that works or collaborate in different corporate companies a benefit like a sustainability department or a human resources department, like a well-being scheme, so they can give passes to the people that work for them, but actually they have a positive impact in the CO2 emissions or the green stuff they want to communicate to the people, but also they reduce the rate of illness and absence of people because they're doing some exercise while going to work or commuting to meetings. So that has a positive impact for corporates as well. And in terms of social, actually is the solution as a first and last mile in terms of connectivity is helping communities better connect or helping people better connect with their communities. And then the last one is the economical factor. Actually, we are cheaper than any other ride. You name it. It's like from competitors, there could be scooters or bikes or public transportation in the cities where we operate. There's a competitor that will be cheaper than us per kilometer or per minute. This means actually we don't generate, it is a huge impact in the savings that people or users can make commuting in an economic way. Even nowadays that the whole world has changed, and actually, well, you are seeing or experiencing in different industries unemployment rates, suspension of contracts, and actually the way that you used to spend money or you will change, and probably anything that could imply savings to the money that you have actually will be helpful to go through these days. Going back, this is to go further or deep in terms of the benefits of health in cycling. Regular cycling to work is associated with 45% lower risk of developing cancer and 46% lower risk of developing a heart disease. Of course, if you compare this by car or public transportation. And cycling and the people that is cycling and walking are often exposed to significantly lower levels of polluted air than drivers and passengers inside vehicles traveling along the same urban routes. It's all about benefit. It's beneficial in any way that you can think. Actually, cycling or walking rather than using other means of transport that could be public transportation and cars. So I mentioned to you before that, of course, Mobike was a Chinese company that started started there, and this is like the story. In April 2016, they started operating in Shanghai, then Beijing, that they spread all over China. In 2017, the main focus of the company was the international operation. Well, was expanding to other countries, Singapore, Manchester in the UK, Germany, Berlin in Germany at the end of the 2017. And in 2018, launches Mexico City and Santiago de Chile. Just a month after they launched Mexico and Santiago, it was acquired by Meituan. Then it went to Israel, India, Madrid, in Spain, Albania, etc., etc. Till we get to 2019, where there's a spin-off of the company. Why? Because from March 2019 onwards, Mobike started de-investing in its international operations and putting the focus on China. Actually, they decided we will focus on China, and we will have to look for somehow investors that will take the operations or international operations. They will run it independently, and we will focus specifically in China. So international operations gathered together by region to start their roadshow. Here in Latin America, the Mobile Latam was formed with Mexico and Chile. And by September 2019, Mobile Latam was formed, but as part of the group as well, we have Australia. So it's like the American side of business was built, or the Pacific side of business was built with Mexico, Chile, and Australia as part of the group. A few pictures of beautiful cities without pollution. And mobility now. This is actually a picture of New York. And nowadays in the USA, almost 70% of all trips occur via a private car. That's what I mentioned before, that in America, the structure of cities is completely different than the ones that you have in Europe. Not in all of them, but I could think that it will be different. However, in Switzerland, one person is the current occupancy of 90% of the journeys to work. It doesn't mean that 70% of them go to work, but if they do go to work by car, they don't share a car. They go by themselves. And actually that's inefficient for a system, for traffic, for congestion, and for pollution. However, across the Western world, buses, trains, bicycles, and new devices like electronic scooters are finding it difficult to compete with the perceived convenience of the car. Even now, actually, if you think about how the post-COVID will look like, probably the people that owns a car will prefer to use it because they will feel safer or in a safe environment, and not going or commuting with a public transportation where you will be confined with a lot of people, and because you don't know if it's going to work or not, the social distancing within those means of transport. And the reliance on private vehicles poses a real threat to the future of the cities in terms of traffic and pollution. That's actually what's happening now. Urban transport systems are unsustainable and are causing major damage to the environment and quality of life of city residents. How the future of mobility could look like? Actually, I believe, and there's a lot of studies that think that the future of mobility is a seamless multimodal urban transportation, where people travel by combining different means of transport. Actually, you go to A to V, not only in one means, so you will combine bikes, autonomous vehicle, electric vehicles, or your own car, buses, subways, and micromobility devices, such electric scooters. So it's gonna be like a holistic journey where you will plan your trip from A to V, and there's platform working on it where you will be able to combine different means of transport. Actually, I can walk use a bike, then go to a tube station, and then, I don't know, rent a scooter. And the whole journey is going to be one. You will pay, you will have like a one voucher or one receipt, and you will have one unique charge, and you don't have to split in different different players the payment. And by combining those modes of transport, cities can encourage sustainable transport options without actually asking the commuter to forget or leave the convenience of the car. They will all combine together. However, if we want this to happen, the private and the public sectors need to work together to achieve this in the future. It's not gonna work if you still work in silos where some transport ministries thinks that the mobility options like in micro mobility, it could be a car sharing, it could be ride sharing scheme, it could be a scooter sharing as well, don't belong to the public transportation of the city. I think they all needs to play together. They all needs to be considered in the same transport solution, and they cannot be apart or considered as in silos. This is a public transportation that we will push forward, and this is the mobility solution that are going in parallel to us. It's not, needs to be combined. And this is how the future looks like. This is from McKinsey and Company. And there's a lot of technologies and means of transport that are playing a role here. As an example, intelligent traffic lights minimize the wait times. Actually, that smart parking makes finding a space more efficient. This has a lot to do with how you make the traffic more efficient. Commercial deliveries are shifted to off-peak hours. You don't consider this as commercial deliveries, the deliveries of food or groceries. You could consider groceries if they're not those that needs to have a certain temperature or temperature regulated. Actually, you have lockers that can do that. So you will place parcel lockers in different areas of the city. So you will be able to pick them up in off-peak hours. That also has an impact in the traffic. In terms of vehicles, shared autonomous vehicles largely replace fixed routes of buses and private cars. So you no longer have the point A to B bus. You will have the shared AVs that will plan the route depending on the need of the people that is in. Electric vehicles are encouraged, and that's the government plays a role here because it has to do with policies. Such as a parking priority, where you will be able as well to charge. It will be used as a charging point. And in addition, if you have the EVs and autonomous vehicles, some parking areas are reclaimed for public spaces. It could be for parks, for plants, and to assign those square meters of the cities to a different purpose. And at the last but not the end, bike sharing and e-scooters improve the last mile and first mile connection or connectivity to hubs like a train station in this example. And the future of mobility. So this is a photo. I think if it's not London, it's Manchester or Oxford. Walking and cycling and active travel must remain the best option for short urban journeys. The greater the share of journeys taken by walking and cycling in urban areas, the better the air quality and health outcomes and the lower congestion in the streets. For many people, those trips are under 3.5 kilometers, goes to between 2 to 4, could be easily undertaken by sustainable active modes of transport, such as walking and cycling. And bikes and scooters will offer a convenient connection to travelers, local transit stop, or share rides pickup locations. I think that the future in the short rides will be walking and or cycling. And okay, this is COVID-19, a scenario that we were not expecting that would happen to us, but it happened. And you can see pictures of Milan, Paris, Barcelona, London, Madrid, and New York. Empty streets, everyone in a lockdown, and of course that has an impact in the mobility industry and the economy as well. So this is mobility actually during and post COVID. In a macro level, weakness could spur consolidation among mobility players. I think public transit ridership has fallen 70 to 90%. Ride hailers like Didi, Uber, or Lyft experience a decline of 60 to 70%. Many micromobility like us and carpooling players like BlaBlaCar in France have suspended their services, and the potential weakness of some of the players is leading to a long predicted industry consolidation. Actually, there were a lot of players in the same business, and I think at this point in time, the ones that has cash in the pocket to survive or are able to raise funds soon will be able to go through this turmoil, and there were the ones that can probably will be acquired by bigger companies, and that's the way where you probably will have from a decrease in the number of players from 10 to 3 in some of the industries like the micromobility one. In addition to this, like in terms of regulation, actually, if physical distancing continues, I think it doesn't matter if I cannot predict the future on how the people will behave, but you're going to be reluctant to be close to people. I think after 2 to 3 months of being in social distancing scheme or working at home, you will be more cautious about how to behave with people, so it could last longer. City leaders might relax regulations for private mobility. People feel less vulnerable by doing that. Actually, there are cities like in Europe where you cannot get into the city center. Either you have to pay or either you have to have permission. Those are the regulation that could be relaxed because people will like to go by their own by car actually. But leaders might also revise the regulation to give more space to pedestrian and cyclists. I think the ones that are in trouble now are the politicians and council and majors, because they have to balance one, the safety of the people, but then things in a different way of how you will commute or connect within the city. An example, Bogota, Colombia added 76 kilometers of cycle lines to encourage physical distancing. New York City have closed several streets to traffic. France actually is introducing a 20 billion scheme to get more people cycling, so to cut pollution and keep people safe. Potential technology setbacks. These are like the consequences of in terms of technology. Over the short term, I think the development of advanced technologies, an example, autonomous vehicles will be delayed. Over the long term, however, micromobility solutions and other technologies that support physical distancing could benefit. And customer demand for those solutions could soar once we overcome the crisis. And the last one, the change in consumer behavior and preference could shift to a model mix, as I mentioned before, how I think the mobility will be in the future. Many people will switch to a transport mode that reduces the risk of infection, so less crowded, more individual transportation. People who own a private vehicle will use it increasingly because there's a sentiment of security and being safe. Those who previously relied on public transport might switch to another mode, such as biking or walking instead. And there's an evidence from China that confirms that private cars, walking and biking have gained the most shares since the pandemic began. While bus and sideway rideships decline. I think here in the lockdown, in Santiago as an example, the metro rides decreased by 75%. People didn't want to go into like pack in a confined train and prefer to walk or to ride bikes. And micromobility solutions could also pick up more quickly if strict disinfection protocols are installed. I think that's the way actually people will feel safer riding a bike if sanitization and disinfection protocols are installed, and the way that we can communicate with them that nowadays you're using this. I mean, you're wearing a mask every time you can. Probably you will have to wear it, but also use gloves as well to ride a bike. And after it, you toss the gloves and disinfect your hands. It could be like a biking kit for safety. And this is the future, how the future comes, and it comes with the bikes. So coronavirus inspires cities to push climate-friendly mobility. Bikes. New York is finalizing a project where cycling and pedestrian will take over the city in a few weeks. Milan to expand cycle paths after COVID-19 lockdown. In Berlin, there's a pop-up bike lane to boost cycling in the pandemic. And Bogota expanded the lanes to curb coronavirus spread. In Santiago de Chile, we also have in Las Condes specific, in one of the communes of the city, they implemented as well reversible cycle paths to reduce the impact and the effect of the pandemic. But that was 1 week ago, and we are today at 10 p.m. starting our lockdown again. So I don't know how efficient it will be during this week's coming for Santiago. So who wants to join the mobile movement and bike the world? Thank you for your time and attention.